to Tipper is Dead, everyone. My name is Whitney and welcome to today's speed build. If you haven't seen Monday's video, definitely check it out so you know the characters I'm playing with. That will be linked in the description below as well as at the end of this video. But basically, since tomorrow is Halloween, we created a bunch of different supernatural characters and that's who we are building for today. My first sim is a siren, and I knew I wanted to have a little pool that went around her build. So this was my original thought process, but as always, I ended up completely scrapping that. It just wasn't working out. I originally wanted 4 of the sims underground and 4 of the sims above ground and just kind of divide the lot into 4. And so this was what I was originally going for. But I knew I wanted the houses to mirror each other, and I just really struggled, and this whole thing right here was a mess, and that's why I started with the siren, because I knew it was going to be difficult, but I didn't realize how difficult. I didn't realize you can't delete the walls underneath ground once you place them, and for the pool you have to put the pool down first. You can't put a pool around a build. That was really frustrating as well. And it was really funny because I had done this, and then I was watching on Claire's second channel, More Claire Chabon. I was watching her video of her creating the Among Us map, and she was having the same problem, and she was getting so frustrated too. So I was like, well, at least I'm not alone. But it's just so frustrating. You place them down, you should be able to delete them as well, but you either have to bulldoze it or you have to try to just move it in. But sometimes when you have awkward walls, that doesn't always work. And I didn't really have enough room, especially with the pool and everything, to make the houses look very similar to each other, so I ended up completely scrapping that, and this is what I came up with. And so underground we have, of course, Lexi. I'm going to call her Lexi because I cannot pronounce her name, but we have her little build, and then she has a little center area up top, and then on either side of her is the Wendigo and Arachne, and then above ground we have the rest of my supernatural sims. But I started with Lexi because I knew I was going to struggle the most with her build, and I just wanted to get hers. And I knew I kind of, since she had the pool, I wanted her to be the center of the build as well, or of the lot. And so that's why I started with her. And then for Arachne and Wendigo, I did extend their little houses out a little bit, just because I needed a little bit more room to place down the staircase and add in another wall, and so that way the sunlight wasn't shining down into their build. And so I blocked off the staircase, and then they have a door going into their build. And I do the same thing with Lexi's build here as well. I add a little door, and so nobody can just come down the ladder and go into her build. And I did lock the doors for all the other sims except the specific sim I wanted in that build, and that's just because if any of you have done, multiple houses on a lot, you know that the sims just kind of do whatever. So you might tell them to cook in one house and they walk to a completely different house to cook in that house. So I really wanted to avoid that, and that's why I ended up locking all the doors and making sure they all had doors. But like I said, for Arachne and Wendigo, I thought it was also really important that the sunlight just didn't stream down the staircase into their build. I mean, they would still have plenty of shadowy areas to hide, but they wouldn't be able to move around quite as freely. And so that's what I was trying to avoid. And plus, this is kind of a sanctuary for all these guys, and so I really wanted them to be able to have locked doors and such to kind of make it a little bit safer for them. And that's kind of the backstory I was going with. If you saw Monday's video, I really focused on the different legends and trying to create sims that matched best I could to the different legends that I had researched. But I also wanted to create a backstory for these guys. And so for Lexi, the sirens, they were sisters, and so for her backstory, I decided to go with that her and her sisters had been hunted, and she ended up losing her sisters, and she's the last siren left, and that's why she's not on the island luring in sailors anymore, and she's here in this little compound sanctuary. Wendigo would have been the first, but we'll get to him in a second. And this is her little area. And so I figured, up top, I wanted to make it kind of beautiful, and she would come sit out here and sing and lure in the men. And she probably works a little bit with succubus now. She doesn't just lure in the men to kill them. She lures them in, and then succubus probably does what she needs to with them. And so succubus isn't having to spend as much effort trying to lure them in. She kind of has siren. And so I figure her and succubus are probably pretty close friends. And the succubus name is Lilith, and so Lexi and Lilith, they're good friends. But this is Lexi's little build. Like I said, I'm just gonna call her Lexi because I cannot pronounce her name to save my life. So, and the name I went with was because it was the most agreed upon throughout the different legends, and so that's why I ended up going with that name. But I can't pronounce it. So, but this is her little bath, and I wanted the little clawfoot tub. I knew I needed a tub since she is a mermaid. I wanted that, even though she would, spend a lot of time swimming, she would still probably like to take a bath and have her little tail out sometimes as well. And so this is her little bathroom, and I love all the windows that she can look out and the water. She kind of feels like she's in the water even when she's not. And so I really, really like that aspect. And then the rest of her area is definitely very cramped, but I was able to fit in all the essentials. And the kitchen on her actually was probably the easiest one I did, because it's so hard trying to get those different angles. And you think after doing hers, doing the rest of them would have been a lot easier, but they weren't. Every single one of them I really struggled with, and hers was probably the one I struggled with the least out of all of them. And so that was really, really frustrating, but I was able to get them all done. And I think I like her kitchen the best. And I do end up putting up a couple cabinets as well, but I do that in a little while. And then of course she has a little seating area, so she might invite over maybe Lilith and the Banshee. She would probably invite them over. They would hang out. I can see them definitely all being very friendly towards each other. But yeah, this is her little area. Nice single bed. She's not all that interested in romance or anything like that. She's definitely not a romantic type of sim. And then I was able to use the little dresser, so I could add a TV to that, so it doubles as a dresser and a TV area. And there was enough room to do like a little seating area there. And I did the little penguin TV one because I had the blue filter on. But I thought it worked. Penguins will go in the sea and hunt fish and such. So I thought the penguin worked with the overall theme as well. And then I love the little hanging lights I found. I had never used those guys before, but I thought they worked really well in this build as well. And then the rest of it, I just try to put down some plants, kind of fill up the space, make it not seem so empty. And I think she would enjoy plants and whatnot as well. Especially the entryway there, it was hard because there wasn't a whole lot of room, but I wanted to do something so it wasn't quite so empty. And so I just added more plants there, and I figured she would enjoy that as well. And I did play test it. She's able to get down and in her home. That's always the hardest part about doing these builds sometimes, is you don't always know if they're going to work. And so next up, we are going to do my Wendigo. And so for him, I figured his backstory, I kind of wanted to go with the one where they turn into a Wendigo because they resort to cannibalism. So I figured for him, he probably got lost in the woods with his brother, and like I said, he was the original one that found this place. And so this underground little bunker area, I'm putting him in. I kind of wanted to do like a mine vibe, but it just wasn't, I had no idea how to do that. I had no inspiration for that at all. But I knew I wanted it really tight and cramped, and so I did a closed off kitchen. He has a pretty small bedroom and bathroom there, and then he does have a little living room area. The biggest area is definitely the kitchen since he is a glutton, and then I made the hallway really narrow as well. But I figured this was maybe an underground, like a little bunker area, storage area for somebody. And they stumbled across it, him and I would assume like his brother maybe, stumbled across it, and his brother died and he was starving, and he ended up eating his brother and turning into a Wendigo. And then this was just his safe area that he decided to stay in. It was very safe for him, and so he never left. And then the other monsters kind of ended up finding him, and they kind of built out from that, and it's just a little safe area for everybody, and that way they're not persecuted or killed or anything like that. And my Wendigo is a vampire, and so it was really important that I thought he'd be underground. And plus, just for the legend, they tend to be more underground, dark spaces, based on like the popular legend of them. I mainly kind of my inspiration for this was the game Until Dawn, and I think that's just because that's the most fresh in my mind, and so that's kind of what I was going for here. And then a little seating area in the kitchen as well, and I tried to put like some boxes and such, probably like storage things for whoever had originally built the area, built the little bunker down here. Probably just had a few things stored down there as well, and then of course the little heater to try to stay warm, which the Wendigo doesn't need to use at all. And that's all. I didn't name him. He's just Wendigo. So, but that's kind of his backstory, and then he has his little area there. And then since he is a vampire, I debated between a regular bed, but I ended up going with the coffin. I thought that made the most sense. And I'm sure he probably changed it up a little bit throughout the years. He's obviously been here for quite a while. And then I had found a bunch of custom content that was like covered items, and so I tried to use as much of that as possible. So he has a little covered dresser there, and then covered chairs and things like that. And you'll see in the screenshots though the chairs clip, and so because it clips across their abdomen there, and so they look a little funny when they sit in the chairs, but it works for the vibe I'm going for. And then he has a pretty dark bathroom there, and I do add a little bookshelf, even though like the TVs and the bookshelves and such don't necessarily fit the theme I was going for. I added them because I did want this to be functional, and the TV especially is the easiest way to get their fun up, and so that's why I added that to all the different builds. I didn't do like a computer or anything like that. The only one I did that for was the Jinn, because I figured he would actually enjoy stuff like that. And so now I'm on to Arachne's little area. So bathroom, pretty similar, kind of a mix between the Wendigo and the Siren. Lexi's bathroom, she has a clawfoot tub, it's all in black, things like that. And for her, I really tried to play up the spider vibes, but I also put a lot of different like tapestries, and there's like the little knitting stuff. I added some of that as well, just because that's the whole backstory for her. And so for her, I figured she kind of found her way here, after her whole history went down, which if you look up the legend, you'll know that. With Athena, she's been a spider, and so eventually everybody she knew eventually ended up dying because of old age. They just grew old, and then she's still here roaming the earth, and so she eventually found her way to this little place and has stayed ever since. And so this is her little area here. She has her bedroom, and then I put a little TV area, and then she has a fairly nice kitchen as well. And then I put up a ton of spider webs, and I also did a bunch of little spiders, which you'll see here in a second, which I thought those were perfect for this. I absolutely love them. And so I put a bunch of them up all around. And I actually ended up finding later on when I was doing somebody else's wallpaper, I'm pretty sure it's from the Halloween, the spooky pack, I found wallpaper with a bunch of spider webs. So I do end up changing the wallpaper that she has right now, and it ends up being just a bunch of spider webs, because I had to go kind of over the top as much as I could with these guys. And so you'll see that later on. I can't remember whose build I was working on when I discovered that. But this is her little area, and all the spiders are super creepy. And, she's probably not as social as the other girls. She probably gets shunned a little bit. They're probably a little creeped out by spiders too. And plus, I made her as a teenager. Just based on the story, I thought that really fit, and so she's not as old as the other girls either, and so she probably spends a lot of time down there, kind of by herself, which is a little sad. And there I am, changing in the wallpaper. And so next up we have Grim Reaper, and I had the custom content little skeletons there. And if you saw my video on Monday for the Grim Reaper, I went with La Calavera Katrina, and there's a bunch of the Day of the Dead stuff in The Sims. Well, not a bunch, but several Day of the Dead stuff in The Sims already, and then I had some of the custom content as well. And so I kind of used a lot of Jungle Adventure as well, just to kind of play up the skeleton vibes. And this is what I came up with. And there's one aspect of her build that is absolutely my favorite, and I kind of did like a little portal area. So I debated because I didn't think of it until the end of her build, and so I almost changed the bathroom. I almost moved the bathroom upstairs and moved the little portal area down here. But I figured down here, she might bring the souls and kind of talk to them a little bit. And then once they're ready, she might lead them up to the portal. And so maybe it's not as obvious. And mainly I went with that route just because I was lazy and I didn't want to switch everything around. But I could also see that happening. And I forgot all about like the sugar skulls and the Katrina dolls. And so you'll see later I end up adding all those to the build, because I totally spaced them out and forgot they were in the game. I knew there was some stuff for the Day of the Dead, and when I was creating her, and my original plan was to use those, but by the time I got here and started doing the build, I totally forgot all about them. And so I do add those later. They do end up getting added to the build. And so this is her little kitchen area, and I tried to go very colorful and bright as much as I could. And I do end up changing this outside wallpaper as well. I did not like it, and so that does end up getting changed as well a little bit later on, which you will see, and it ends up working a whole lot better. And then I put a couple of cabinets up for her. Again, I really struggle with the kitchen, and it's so frustrating because I know it's on an angle, and that always makes it difficult, but you think because I was doing it several times, I would have found it a little bit easier, but I didn't. And so that's her little kitchen, and then I was able to do like a little dining room table for her as well. And I figured, she would invite the girls over sometimes, and they would kind of alternate whose house they kind of eat at. The Lilith's house is probably the smallest as far as room. It's more intimate and cozy for her seduction ways, and so they probably spend the most time either at Lexi's or here at the Grim Reapers. She's not as part of the group as the others, but they still do hang out with her, I would say, a little bit as well. More so than they do Arachne. Especially the Banshee, they're very similar in what they do, and so I see her, Katrina and the Banshee, hanging out quite a bit. And the Banshee, again, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her name. It's Irish. And so I've been calling her Abel, but I don't think that's how you pronounce it. But it's hard to say. So if any of you know how to pronounce it, let me know in the comments below. But that's the Banshee's name. And Grim, like I said, I went with the Mexican lore on that. So she's La Calvera Katrina, and I know I'm not pronouncing that right. So you'll just have to forgive me because I'm not good with pronunciations, even in my own language, let alone in other languages. But I really like the history and such behind other cultures, especially different legends. And so I really wanted to include that and add that to this build, to the different supernaturals that I was creating, go with some different legends from around the world. So, but this is, like I said, La Calvera Katrina's little area, and then she has her little portal where the dead go, and they go through the portal, and then they can kind of go either, to the good side of things or to the bad side of things. Um, she just leads them here and then they kind of go where they're supposed to be after that. But that's her little house and I really like it. And like I said, I do go back in and add a little bit more stuff to it. And then in between there, I did the roofs, but I didn't leave that in here because I struggled so much with the roofing on this build, and it is glitching a little bit on the little end pieces there. When I put the trim, it didn't work, and I don't know how to fix it, and so I just kind of left that alone because I was really frustrated there. So just adding a few more touches here before I move on. More skeletons. And then this is my little banshee's house, and so I kind of went ghosty for her because she's more of a spirit, and so I wanted to use this ghost wallpaper. I thought it was so cute, but I ended up using that on the inside, and then I went with the one I just placed down for the outside. I like the texture of it, and so I ended up using that on the outside and the ghost on the inside. And then for the doors, I decided to just go with all the same doors, just in different colors to match the different aesthetics of the different builds. But that way it kind of ties them in together as well. I didn't do it for the downstairs just because for them, since this door has the wood across the top, it wouldn't have fit for the Wendigo and the Arachne. And for Lexi, I really wanted the glass door. I wanted that open concept for her. And so I didn't want to change that as well. But it does tie all the top builds together. So I do like that. And for the Banshee's windows, I just struggle. I struggle so much with windows and roofs. And it's so frustrating. Especially, I had good luck on the farm build one. But I think that was a fluke because especially these odd builds, I have such a hard time. But I went with the Jungle Adventure again to kind of tie in with Grimm's build. And then I found these windows with the wood tree in the pane. I thought that was really pretty, and so I like that. But for my Banshee, kind of her backstory, since we're creating that, I figured since the legend is that they usher in the deaths of those they love, her line has ended, and so there's no one else left for her to usher in, so she's just kind of left to wander aimlessly, and that's how she ended up here. And I'm kind of making up my own story as I go too, so I might deviate a little bit from legend, but I figured maybe she was trying to steal souls from Grimm because she was lost and she didn't know what to do, and that's how she ended up here. Her tie to this place was Grimm. Grimm already had her little area here and her little portal, and so she brought the Banshee here to live and have a little community, since she was just kind of lost and didn't know what to do anymore since her family line had died out. But this is her little build, and I do like it. She has a little seating area. I went a little bit different with her, so the seating area is over here instead of a bathroom. And then her kitchen I do like because I didn't struggle so much with the counters. I just did the fridge and the sink on one side and then the stove in the middle of the island over there. I really like that. And then she has the 3 stools as well, so she might invite over her girlfriends and they sit and chat and things like that. And then I debated about putting a little dining room area over here, but since she already has the bar stools, I figured that was just a little too squishy. So I just did another seating area. She has a lot of areas to sit and just kind of ponder a little bit. But I did try to put some plants in to kind of add a little bit of color since it's all so white, and the tapestries here as well, since her story is the family line and everything. I wanted to add the tree, and I figured maybe Arachne did those for her, and it was kind of a gift for her as well. And now I'm just going back. I found the sugar skulls, so I'm going back in and placing the sugar skulls everywhere. And then I later find the Katrina dolls, and I end up placing them as well. But that's why I added some tapestry as well, because I like that they had the family tree. and I really wanted to incorporate that, and I figured that's kind of ties her into Arachne a little bit as well. So I really like that. And then she has her little room up here as well. And I put her bathroom upstairs instead of downstairs. So if she does have guests over, they have to go upstairs to use the bathroom, but not a huge deal. And pretty similar to all the other bathrooms I did. I did add more plants, and I figured, maybe she likes plants a little bit since they are life. When so much of her existence has been about death, she might really like keeping some plants and things like that. But this is her little area, and then I just add a couple plants to just fill it up a little bit. And of course, I do shrink them down so they're not crowding the toilet so much. But this is her little bathroom, and then her little living room. We already did the living room. Her little bedroom is pretty basic as well. Nothing too fancy. I do another seating area, and then she has some books that she reads, things like that. So she has a lot of seating areas, but it all works out in the end. And so this is her little bed, and I just did a single bed. I don't see her being all that interested in entertaining or anything like that. Past just conversation. No romantic entertaining for our Banshee here. But she has her little mirror, and then of course I put up more ghost decorations. I do like, between the custom content I found and then the spooky pack, there was plenty of little things to put around and kind of make it spirit friendly, essentially. So, but the bookcase, I do end up moving that over. I didn't really like it because she wouldn't have been able to get to it, so it wouldn't have been functional there. So I ended up moving that and putting I just moved the little end table back farther, just because, like I said, I really wanted it to be functional. And I put down that little book thinking, well, she could at least get books from there. But like I said, I didn't quite like how it looks, so I had to move the bookshelf over as well. And then just adding a little rug for her. And then I do, of course, one at the seating area as well. Well, the rugs I have a hard time with too. Not so much, that I struggle to find something that looks good, but just there's too many options sometimes. But now we are on to Lilith's home. And so for her, there's no real big backstory to her. She's a regular sim, so she's not an occult sim at all. But I am going to go in and add some of the, what are they called? The extra little traits you can buy from the reward store and such, and do some of those, to make her extra desirable, things like that. And I'm going to make her immortal, so she does have a little supernatural aspect about her, but there's nothing over the top about her. But I did struggle a little bit with the outside. I wanted to break it up. There's just a lot going on there, so I didn't want just like a solid red outside. I wanted something to kind of be distinctive about it, so I ended up putting some brick. I don't know how well that looks or anything like that, but I don't hate it, and so I went with that. And I actually ended up giving her a little patio area, her and Jin. I do, because Jin's on the other side, because I figured out of all the Sims, her and Jin are probably the most social, and so they might be out there looking for Sims to kind of lure in, and like I said, she kind of seduces Sims, and Jin kind of likes to play pranks and mayhem and mess with their mind a little bit. So they would go out on their little patios and try to lure in some Sims as well. Like I said, Siren probably helps Lilith out a little bit in that department, just because she's not really killing them, but Lilith needs some men to seduce, so she definitely probably helps her out a bit. But I went very heavy on the red and blacks theme, and I put a lot of plants, a lot of different flowers, just trying to make it very cozy and romantic in here as much as possible. So I really do like how her build turned out as well. Her kitchen is so small though, and I have not play tested it yet, so hopefully it does work. I do end up switching the stove over for the fridge and the sink on the other side just because I do put an island, and with the island it looked too cramped, and I figure in real life you wouldn't have it that cramped. The fridge would probably be on the other side. And so I do, like I said, I switched those over just to make it feel a little less cramped. You would have something shorter there so it doesn't seem as tight of a space. But it was pretty tight in here. But and I haven't play tested it, so hopefully it works. I had her go in and go upstairs and everything, but I did not play test the kitchen yet, so we'll see later on. But I think, I don't know. It's so hard. I'm always like, I think this one's my favorite or this one was my favorite, but I really enjoyed her build. I like the aesthetic and I like all the plants, and I put some sweets down and a bunch of candles and the incense things, so she can definitely really amp it up. But I just did the double seats there, nice and cozy, and I just did a simple little love seat. There is a little chair and everything as well that I ended up putting down in the living room, but she definitely would want to keep things cozy and romantic. And then there's a little bear with the heart and everything like that, and so she does have, gifts from maybe the men she tries to seduce. They might send her gifts and such, until she ruins their lives. So, but this is her little house, and I think I really enjoyed it. And now I found the Katrina dolls, so I have to go back and put them in, of course. And then her bedroom, I definitely had to give her a double bed, so you'll see that here in a second, because I thought that was extremely important that she had that. And then some pillows for her to just, maybe sit and be cozy on. Things like that. I would have loved to add a fireplace in here as well, but with the tiny build it just really wasn't feasible. And then this is her little bathroom upstairs. I definitely wanted to give her a bath as well. I figured she would really pamper herself. I wanted to fit a vanity in here, but I just did not have the space. There just was not enough room. Not in the bathroom, but in her bedroom. I was going to place a vanity, which you'll see here in a second, but there just was not enough room for me to do that. So that was a little bit frustrating as well, but overall I still really like it, and I figured, she still is really able to play up her looks even without a vanity, so I'm not too upset about it overall, but it was a little bit frustrating, I would say. So, and I absolutely love all the vampire stuff to make it a little bit more of a romantic build and get that vibe going on. I definitely love it. And then, of course, this bed. I would have liked this bed better if it was black instead of silver, but that's okay. And I used these little end side tables in a lot of the builds just because with the awkward angle, they actually were the ones that fit next to the bed, and so I ended up going with them for several of the builds. If I could speak, that would be great. So here you can see I'm trying to play around, place the vanity and then the dresser, and I just really didn't like how the dresser looked over there, and I was just getting frustrated, and so I ended up scrapping the vanity and putting the dresser there instead, and then just putting a mirror, and she might, just stand at her dresser and use the mirror to get ready, things like that. So, scrap that, but it still works. Well, so frustrating. And then she has a little seating area where she might sit and read some magazines, and she'd definitely be like into fashion magazines and all the latest, girly like Cosmo, how to seduce men and all the different tricks you can use there. So that's her little cozy area. And then, like I said, she does have her little balcony area out here because she would definitely want to be out there luring in some men, watching for whoever might go by, to see how she can get them up here and lured into her little lair there. So That's pretty basic, but I really like it. And then struggled to find a piece to put on this wall here because I knew I needed something up on the wall, but trying to find something that was functional so that they could still sit there and such was a little bit frustrating. And of course, had to put down more flowers in the VIP bucket so she could amp up the romance. I thought that would be a good thing to have out there as well. And then I ended up just doing those wooden hearts because I couldn't think of anything else to put out there. But that is her little build. And now we are on to the Jin, which I like his build. I like the color again. I know I say that a lot, but his is probably my favorite color overall. It's definitely fits best to my color palette, and I really like it. And I really like how different it is from Lilith's color, and so they really stand out as a forefront to lure, the Sims in that they need to lure in. And I love the Realm of Magic windows. Those worked really nicely here. And again, I did a little bathroom downstairs for him instead of upstairs. And then he has his balcony on top of that, so he can lure in some people. And then for his stairs, went back to the way I had him in all the other builds. The succubus is the only one that has a little bit different, but that's okay. And then he has his little bathroom down here, and then he has his kitchen and living area, of course, as well. And then I have his little, I messed up there and put the wrong fence, but this is his. And I really, like I said, like the color palette for him. And he's a lot of fun. And I did give him a computer just because I figured out of all of them, he would be the most modern, like not in looks. He looks very much like a Jin, but he's the most modern as far as enjoying, electronics and things of the modern world. He really, really enjoys that in his spare time. And so I definitely gave him a computer, especially since he does have the mischief aspiration. I figured, that's a great way to get their mischief level up. And so I wanted to include that as well. And so here I'm about to struggle again really hard. But I tried, and I could not figure it out again, even though I've done something similar on the other builds. I don't know. I just really struggled here. So, I end up moving the stove over right there, so you see, and just making it work that way. And then I do give him a little dining room table as well. I figured he would probably like to socialize a bit. He's definitely probably a social creature and likes to talk, and so he might hang out with the girls and such. But like I said, he's not really into romance or anything either. He's more into pranks and things like that. So, but he definitely, I could see him having a friend group, not just with the other supernaturals, but he might invite, Sims from the world in as well, which might frustrate some of the other supernatural creatures since this is supposed to be kind of a safe area. And then he's kind of risking that by bringing in Sims from the outside world. But for his story, I figured, he is probably prosecuted a little bit as well, his kind. And so he probably had to leave his homeland and ended up here and found this little safe area. But like I said, he is pretty social, so he doesn't cut himself off like the other ones do. Succubus doesn't either. Lilith doesn't either, but she has a purpose for why she's inviting others in. So, but this is his little area, and I gave him some tea. I figured he liked the tea. I don't know why it made me think genie, but I liked it and I went with it. So, that's his. And then he has pretty basic bedroom. I did give him a two-person bed, and then the little dresser there, and I give him a bookshelf, and then I do end up putting a little, like I said, computer desk with a computer, and again those little side tables I use just because they fit in the awkward the awkward space. And I just put some plants there to kind of fill up that space since it's also awkward. I needed something to go in there. And then this is where his little computer is, and just pretty simple. And then he has a seating area out here. And I ended up scrapping those. I just put like a little couch and like a little table. And so he might sit out there and just hang out a little bit. But I did scrap the double chairs there. And so that's pretty much it for him. And we're about to go on to our werewolf here. And I love the windows I found for his build. They are perfect for what I was going for. You know, you'll see them here in the second. I flipped through, but these are the ones I ended up going with, and they're absolutely perfect. They kind of give that creepy vibe. He probably peeks out and somebody's watching you, but you really can't see in. Like, absolutely love it. And for him, I actually did a little cage area, which you guys will see. I thought that was important. So he has the bathroom down on the lower floor, and then he has a little cage area. So for this guy, I figured he got bit. He used to be human, obviously. He got bit, and now he just doesn't care anymore. Like, you'll see I put a lot of trash, and he probably tried at first to still maintain kind of a human lifestyle and everything like that, but he kept destroying his clothes and destroying his stuff, and so he ended up just giving up on maintaining a regular existence at all. And so he stopped cleaning up after himself. He doesn't have a wardrobe like before. If you saw Monday's video, I did the same outfit all the way across for him, and because he was struggling so hard and he couldn't maintain that level of normalcy, and so he just kind of gave up on trying to find a compromise. But he still has a little bit of that consciousness where he doesn't want to hurt anybody, so he does have a little cage, and each month he locks himself up so he doesn't hurt anybody. And I put a bunch of different stuff in there. I put a bunch of clothes, like he probably rips his clothes, so there's a bunch of clothes in there. And he has like some bones in there I think those were from Jungle Adventure as well. And then I put some of it's kind of mean, but I put some of the dog squeaky toys in there as well, like a hamburger and like a little chicken leg in there. And so yes, those. And I found something in Debug that kind of looks like a doghouse. It was too big, so I had to shrink it down. So it's just like the top of the doghouse that he has in there. And then I put like a bunch of crates and such, like maybe he went and got a mass amount of food and that's all in the crates, and that way he doesn't have to go out to go to the store or anything. And then you'll see downstairs I put like a bunch of cans and such about, just because he probably drinks a bit to kind of cope with everything that's happened to him. And so this is his little area, and he probably just stumbled across here, when he was struggling and realized he wasn't able to live a normal life anymore. He probably ran away and stumbled upon this place, and that's how he ended up in the compound. But you can see I'm putting a bunch of dishes, and I ended up putting a bunch of trash and everything around. But this is his little cage area, so I kind of feel bad for the guy, but I definitely, like I said, seeing him doing that, and that kind of probably wanted that from Buffy. Like, I think of Oz when when I kind of think of werewolves. I love that show, and I've watched it so many times, and so that's kind of probably where I came, with this cage, and he locks himself up and everything like that. And Oz struggled too. Like, he ended up having to go away for quite a while. So, but this is his little area. I put a little tire. I figured he would chew on that. Something that he can't quite destroy as much as the other things. And then I was mainly looking for, which there's the dresser. I didn't see it there. I must have passed over it, but I do find it in a pile of trash. But I was looking for just the dresser, and I didn't even see it there. I passed right over it. But I do put the dresser with a pile of trash in there and like a tub. Like, he's destroyed everything, and so I put like a bunch of papers around. Like, it's a mess in here. And so he probably doesn't socialize too much with everybody else. I think maybe his only friend is the Wendigo, who maybe comes and checks on him and talks to him and such, just because the Wendigo kind of understands, what it was to be human and then have, to transform and not be able to control yourself, things like that. But that's it for the build. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope you enjoy these screenshots, and we will see you guys on Monday. There's actually going to be a bonus video tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And remember, if you're not already, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and we will see you tomorrow, and then we'll be back to our regular episodes on Monday. Bye, guys.